Happy Saturday. Day 2 of 100 Days of Moss. So I think I'm going to start with just sharing a little bit of a story of how today has unraveled for me. Today is a series of dates. I woke up at 7 a.m. this morning and left for a breakfast date. And then after my breakfast date, I came home for a long-distance ladies Zoom date with a girlfriend. But on my way home, I got the opportunity to really reflect on how I'm approaching dating and how I'm approaching relationships and how for me things are shifting. And so, if you've watched yesterday's, I mentioned this guy, but if you didn't, I'm going to remind you about him. Back in October, I had gone on a date, and the gentleman that I had gone on this date with was amazing. Like, I had so much fun. And he ended up taking a photo of me, and I posted it on social media, and everyone was like, wow, like, what are you even thinking about? Like, you look so joyous. You look so elated. And I was having such a great time with him. And one of the things that came up for me was that, should I never see him again, it'll be fine. And to which a lot of people responded, they're like, well, obviously didn't like him if that isn't the case. And it was like, no, that's not really true. I like him just fine. I would love to see him again. And if I don't, I'm not going to regret this date that we went on. Okay? Well, today we met up for breakfast. What I've realized about myself is that I can't go anywhere hungry. Because if I am hungry, it will distort my perception of everything. Let me slow this down a little bit. Yesterday, I had gone with my whole pleasure ritual. Yes, I am talking about masturbation. I had really taken care of myself. I massaged. I moisturized my skin. I did my whole thing. And I did it for me. I did it because I was feeling in the mood and I was wanting it. And it was just remarkable. And so when I went on this date this morning, I really wasn't hungry for that. I wasn't starving for it. Because I wasn't starving for it, there was no projection of sexual needs, sexual satisfaction. There was no need for that to be covered. I was already satiated. And because I wasn't starving, I could actually be a little bit more deliberate about what I was interacting with. And so on this date, I looked at him and I got to be present with him and I got to connect with him. And I realized, oh, I like him just fine and he's a great guy, and that isn't the part of me that would be met right now. See, if you're full, when you really like something, you're like, oh, I could go for another piece of that, right? But when you're satiated, if it's not really the thing you're hankering for, or that you have a deep affinity for, well, you're not going to go get another slice. And so what I realized about myself was that making sure I'm satiated before anything is what ensures that I don't project that someone else is going to satiate me. Let me break this down into a little bit more simplistic terms. And let me use the example of actual hunger rather than sexual appetite. Okay? Actual hunger. If you have not eaten in a year, you're not really going to be choosy. You are going to accept whatever crumbs are on the floor just to get something. And we call this thirsty, right? Like in the dating world and relationships, we call it being thirsty. But I don't really like that particular metaphor for reasons you will find in the future when I go to talk about them. But I wanted to take this from that aspect of hunger. Because if I haven't eaten something, I no longer really care what it is I'm eating as long as I'm eating something, right? If I'm starved, I'm not going to be like, excuse me, no, I don't eat McDonald's. You know, I'm not going to do that. I would rather starve. I would rather continue to not eat anything than to put that in my body. Yeah, that's not what happens. When you have been hungry for something, you really will accept just about anything, anyone to satisfy that. And mind you, there are people who are severely restricted and will choose starvation and will end up in relationships that are lackluster and don't make them satiated because they have like control restrictions, right? So example, like people who eat a vegan diet, even though their bodies are like, bruh, no, I need meat. They'll be like, no, I could never eat meat. And then they'll continue on with a vegan diet until it absolutely destroys their body. And then doctors intervene and they're like, listen, like you actually need other food in your body. That's kind of the equivalent, right? And we see this in people who end up, you know, married to someone and then realizing that they're unsatisfied in the relationship and the relationship has to blow up because it's simply unsustainable. It is unsustainable to be unsatiated. And so part of that is like, well, then we outsource and we go, well, I need somebody else to satiate me. And then we go around and we're still hungry, unsatiated. And then we just pick bottom barrel suitors. So either you're highly controlled and choosing the wrong suitor for you who's not going to satiate you anyways, or you're still unsatiated and you're going to choose bottom barrel nutrients. But what I have learned about myself is I'm unwilling to do either of those things anymore. And hear me out, I have enough scientific evidence to back the thing that I always knew as personally acquired information and data, that if I don't pleasure myself before a date, then I will choose him to sleep with, and he genuinely is just McDonald's dick. You know, it's McDicks, quite literally. And it's not because I value him, it's not because I appreciate him, it's really not because I chose him, it was simply because he was available. We need to sit with that energetic for a minute. That you are being chosen. This woman is choosing to sleep with you simply because you are available, not because she's satiated enough to deliberately choose you. See, when I'm satiated, then I can go and be like, yeah, this is the person that I actually want to sleep with, that I actually want to spend time with, that I actually want to spend my quality moments with, not because I'm starving for attention, affection, physical intimacy. And so I went on this date, having been fully satiated, and not having the projection of like, I'm hungry and I just need to ravish something. And because I didn't have that starvation need, that like pulling for it, I got to just be present. And in that presence, because I wasn't gripping for something I didn't need, again, because I'm satiated, I actually got to see the spots where like, I would much rather just be friends with this guy and I actually want to take romanticism off the table. Because I'm not hungry. I'm not starved for something that he could offer. It was interesting because it really does show up in like 1,000 different areas of my life where not being so rooted in me or grounded in who I am is now I'm like distracted by what other people could offer. And so I want to take an actual example of this. Okay, so a couple years ago, it had been like 360 days for me to get it in, okay? I was really hankering for that. I was like, oh my God, it's been a year. What if I am just cobwebs and dust and Sahara down there? And I was so starved sexually. And I wasn't really in a place of self-pleasure. And I wasn't really taking care of myself personally in that way. And so then I went on this date and I was like, I want this man. I want this man to come home with me. And obviously he did because he was easy. And we had a great night. And don't get me wrong, it was great. But again, it was satiating, but it was unsustainable. It was McDicks. That's not going to keep me nourished for long periods of time. And nor would I want it to, right? It's like deliberately saying, I'm going to pick this person because they have fast food sex to offer me, and I'm going to live off of that for the rest of my life. And if you actually give a shit about who you are and give a shit about your health and your sustainability and how you are going to move through the world, at some point you got to be like, these French fries ain't digging it, you know? It's not working for me. But at the time, I was sexually starved, much like someone who hadn't eaten for a year, 360 days, I was like, I'll take anything. But I didn't consciously know that. I didn't consciously know that I was taking anything. I thought I was being very deliberate. We'd been talking for weeks. Until I was satisfied, right? So now I'm sexually full, and then I look at this man, I'm like, wow. Great in bed. Nothing else. Nothing else in you is matching what I need. And so I did that for a while and like, you know, explored the places of where do I satisfy myself before the date or do I just go on the date hungry? And every time I went on a date hungry, that's what we're going to use the wording as, I would end up picking guys who like didn't fit the bill for my life at all. Unemployed, lack of direction, inability to hold down like a commitment, didn't really like indecisive, unable to actually commit to like a food menu item. And I mean that legitimately. And so all it was really was physical, and that has its place. I'm not going to knock that, but it has its place. But for me, because I'm now in this transition where I'm like, I'm no longer available for that. I'm not really interested in eating McDonald's all the time. I actually want the sustainable, healthy, well-rounded meals coming my way. Now, I'm not going to choose the McDonald's French fries and burgers. I'm going to choose the steak with the garlic side potatoes and the steak vegetables with maybe a little drizzle of gravy and like escargot and an like appetizer of salad and definitely a dessert. You know, I'm going to pick the dude that comes with all of the fixings. I'm not interested in the fast, quick, easy way of dating anymore. And part of this that I want to keep coming back to is it happened because I pleasured myself first. I wasn't hungry, right? I wasn't like I was going grocery shopping starved. It was like I am full. Now I can be more deliberate in what I choose. So I'm sexually satisfied. I can be more deliberate if I want this guy to sleep with me or not. And let me tell you, makes all the difference. Because today, when I interacted with him and I was already satiated, there was less of my animal present, right? My inner animal, the primal nature in me. It was like, yeah, we're good. Can we go? But then my woman was like, I really love this conversation and I appreciate this person as a human being on the planet and I would love to hear where this conversation goes. But romantically, sexually, as a match and a partner for me, it's a no. When I'm satiated in all the ways. Now, that doesn't mean that no man is going to be the one that I choose. It just means that when I'm satiated, I get to pick from a level place. I'm not picking from a place of lack or a place of trying to meet an external need, right? Or having someone become the sole responsible person for my needs, which is, again, not accurate anyway. Because what most people do is that they do rely on their relationship and their partner to sexually satisfy them. So what that ends up being is really lackluster sex in the long run. Lackluster relationship in the long run, because you have no ability to be satiated in yourself, for yourself, that you can pick from a clear conscience that this person's for you. And this is one of the places where, like, you know, yesterday I started talking about it, where it was like, to be unrooted but grounded, you need to be clear. If you are personally sexually unsatisfied, emotionally unsatisfied, physically unsatisfied, healthily unsatisfied, intellectually unsatisfied, and unsatisfied in any other way, there is going to be something that you're going to see the world through that filter. If I'm sexually unsatisfied, then everyone I look at that's the rose-colored glasses that I'm seeking through, right? And so the work here for me is to make sure that it's not just in the realm of sex. So before I go on a date, yeah, absolutely, 100%, that is no longer a negotiable thing. Pleasure first for me. So I am not projecting onto this guy that he needs to be the one to pleasure me, because let me tell you, if I'm hungry, I'm going to get it, and they're typically very easily attained that way. But the thing that really shows for me in this particular spot is how much commitment to myself I have to have prior to going on the date. Because if I'm not intellectually stimulated, then I'm going to sit there with the guy and be like, oh my God, he's so smart. He's so intelligent. Oh my God. But really, if I'm intellectually stimulated, I'm going to be able to see through that bravado, that projection that I'm holding, because I want him to satiate that part of me. So if I'm already intellectually stimulated, when I see him, I'll be like, oh, he knows a lot of big words. But what he's saying doesn't actually make any intellectual sense at all. If I'm emotionally starved, and then any time he like comes in close, I'm like, wow, this guy is so attentive. He's so attentive. And oh my God, I just love that. But if I am emotionally satiated for myself before I go on the date, then I can actually see through his behavior and actually see it as, oh, he actually isn't attentive. This is who he is. Rather than the opposing of like getting lost in his false attentiveness because I'm hungry for it, right? This is also one of the things of like, when you are coming from a place of lack, you will seek it anywhere. So I think money is actually a really great example of this. If you're coming from a place of lack for money, and you're like, oh my God, I need money, then you are going to see 1,000 opportunities to make money because you need it. And so this is where people who need money often get themselves into trouble, because now they put their money or their attention and their time into like 1,000 different things in hopes that they'll get just a little bit more money. It's a distortion of your resources, one, but two, it's like a misallocation of them, because you're better off just investing in one thing that's going to make you more money than 1,000 things. But when you're coming from a place of lack, you're going to try to just find anything that will satiate that. So same thing with the dating world. If you are in lack for attention, in lack for emotionality, in intimacy, but you don't give that to yourself first, then you will seek other people to give it to you. Problem being is, because you're already starved of it, you're not looking at the quality of which you're getting your resources, your nutrients from. You're not looking if it's really a sustainable match. You're just looking for the quick hit that will satiate you enough till the next day. It's not a long-term thing. And I think that's part of the issue is in the dating world, particularly in things like Tinder or Hinge or anything, is that no one is self-centered enough to let themselves be full, to choose someone deliberately. All of us are just sexually starved, picking whoever is available, the crumbs off the fucking floor, eating it, and being like, oh yeah, this is going to be the one, not realizing that what we're really doing is choosing McDonald's for the rest of our life, instead of being like, you know what, I'm going to feed myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm okay. And now when I go to this grocery store, aka Tinder, to pick the dick of my choosing, I'm choosing because that is grade A Kobe beef, not because that is leftover like stir fry shit. You know, there's like an intentionality. Basically, today was just realizing how much intentionality I now get to have in my dating life, because I'm not willing to go anywhere starved first. Like, I'm not willing to starve myself so you look good, right? I'm not willing to go the whole day not eating, not taking care of my needs, so that when I meet you, you look like a tapenaki, you know, that you look amazing. It's like, oh, I already feed myself really well, so you've got to meet me there, you know? Does this make sense? Am I making sense here? Because this has really been something that I've teetered around my dating life forever. When I take care of myself, I pick really good guys. Like really solid, intelligent, bright, committed, strong men. When I don't take care of myself in any realm, if I don't do my personal self-pleasure, if I don't do my own intellectual stimulating, if I don't do my own emotional intimacy, I will pick bottom barrel for sure. But I pick really good quality, high matched men when I'm satiated. And there's a way that like we just don't talk about this stuff enough, and we don't understand why. Like when we talk about self-care, it's like as a recouping process, not as like, bruh, that's the minimum, you know? You are not going to be able to pick a really good meal to eat if you have been starved for a year. You are going to pick whatever will feed you, is my point. For me, this is exactly how it goes. So in October, I had gone 6 months without attention from somebody. I was starved for attention. And here's this guy who like didn't want to end our date because it was so amazing and he was having such fun and I was having such fun. It was such a great conversation. And so I was so starved for his connection that it like was just so, that was what was there for me. And so do I regret eating McDonald's that day? No, because I needed something to eat. I needed to not be starving anymore. And so absolutely taking the McDick's version of a person is fine, because I actually knew that it wasn't going to be forever, right? It wasn't the long-term sustainable choice for me for 1,000 reasons. And then today, because I was sexually satisfied, I got to see that even clearer. And so really, like, the thing that I get to practice now is, what part of me is being starved, and can I make sure that she's fed so that I don't think that this guy's going to be the one to feed me? And then that way, when I interact with him, I'm interacting him from like a place of choice. And choice is very big for me. Okay. I can't remember what I talked about yesterday, but I think I'm going to bring it into here. Choice is one of those things that I need to be able to do. And so if you're starved, you're actually not in a place of autonomous choice. You're in a place of survival, right? Meaning that like everything, like if your sexual satisfaction is dependent on staying with somebody, you are in a starved place because you are not sexually satisfied yourself. And therefore you're reliant on this person to meet that need. It's a survival pattern. It's like, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. So for me, there's no choice in survival. It is all trauma response. It is all, I'm going to stick this relationship out. It is all, I'm going to sleep with whoever comes my way. It is all very survival-based thinking. Choice means that I'm fully satiated in every realm. Choice means that I'm very aware of the options I have available. And then choice also means that I'm going to be deliberate about the thing that I pick. It's not going to be happenstance. It's not going to be like just because it was easy. It is going to be like, I'm picking this person, even if it's complicated, difficult, or inconvenient, because I'm picking them. And in this particular conversation, I got to be clear that I'm not going to pick him romantically. Friend-wise, love having the conversation with him. I'm already intellectually stimulated, but even in the space of me already being intellectually stimulated, he was the gravy. It was a gravy conversation, because I don't need the gravy to be satiated, but it's a nice little topper. I'm already full, but like that really made the dynamic of my intellectual stimulation wonderful. And that's the place that I want to choose, right? Would you like added guacamole? Yes or no? It costs extra. I know I'm still going to choose it because I'm not starving. Because if I was starving, I wouldn't care about the guacamole. I'm going to pick anything off the floor. But if I'm not starving and I want to be more deliberate about what's on my plate, I'm going to pick the guacamole. Does this make sense? Am I speaking in riddles? I need to know. Because I've talked to this particular point with a girlfriend before and a couple other people, and ultimately it's like being very aware of what kind of people you're choosing and why. And most of the time people don't realize that they're choosing fast food relationships because they are personally starved. And when they're personally starved, it's because they're outsourcing it to other people, making them responsible for feeding them instead of being like, well, I'm going to feed myself. So me feeding myself last night was amazing. I was already A-okay. It allowed for a clarity that wasn't possible before. Did I regret the McDonald's? No. There's a difference, right? I'm not going to always choose healthy. Sometimes I'm going to deliberately choose McDonald's, but the difference is I'm not coming from a lens of, I need it. I'm so starved. I need anything. It's like, oh, you know what would be nice? Fast food sex. That would be nice tonight. I don't need it, but that would be a nice alternative to like the healthy diet that I usually maintain. I'm going to go get myself a poutine man, you know? I'm going to get myself a Wendy's with a frosted nipple. I'm going to do that. That is what I'm going to do, and I'm consciously doing it because I'm aware of what it is that I need, and I've already met my needs, so that is just like a dessert. Okay? I don't really know if this is like Moss related, to be 100% honest, but this is where I'm at today. And I think when we really understand how it is we have been dating, how it is we'd rather be dating, we can start to fill in the distance, right? Like the cognitive dissonance of where you mentally are like, I would like a healthy guy and then a healthy relationship. But then the embodiment is like, no, bitch, we're starving. We are so hungry. You don't get to pick healthy. You get to pick what's available. And if he's available, we're picking him. right? And I think that's really the difference. It's like, well, how do I bring my idea of a healthy, sustainable, juicy relationship into my body so that I'm behaving in an alignment that would actually allow for that? Now, listen, if I want a juicy, sustainable relationship, I can't be starved for it. Because if I'm starved, I'm not going to know it. I'm not going to pick the steak over whatever's readily available. I'm not going to be willing to wait the 45 minutes for the steak to be ready. I'm not going to be willing to put in the order. I'm just going to go straight to the fast food department. I'm just going to go right up to the drive-through window, take out whatever's fastest because I'm starved. Like, I really want you guys to understand the extent of which I mean this. Personal gratification, personal satisfaction is not reliant on anything outside of us. And so when I take those things into my own hands and I'm not like, oh, I can't intellectually stimulate myself. I can't sexually stimulate myself. Oh, I can't emotionally stimulate myself. If I have any of those needs reliant on something outside of myself, then there's a good chance that I will allow myself to be starved from it. Once I'm starved, I'm in a trauma response and just looking to survive. Once you're in survival, you don't get the gift of time. You don't get the gift of patience. You're like, I just need to be able to live to see tomorrow. Your ability to actually see things clearly is very limited, and it's okay because you are in a survival response. The key is to understand is, do you need to be in a survival response there? I don't need to be in a survival response around my sexuality because I am fully capable of taking care of myself and nourishing myself in that way so that I can choose consciously what meals I want to put into my body. Pun intended. And listen, it's a slower process. I'm going to be really honest. It is very slow to transition out of like, I'm unconsciously just choosing fast food because I need to survive, and then consciously shifting to like, I actually want a more well-rounded meal. Because there's so many habits and so many routines that are perpetuating the prior, right? Like, not moisturizing my body in the mornings, not having a regular regime around my personal pleasure, not taking care of my physical body, like in terms of what I actually eat. All of those are the equivalents of like skipping lunch, skipping breakfast, thinking coffee is a meal. It's all the same, right? Your habits and rituals are designed to support the continuation of the survival pattern. So if my survival pattern is like, I'm sexually frustrated or hungry or starved, then my habits are going to support that because it's trying to contain some sort of consistency inside of it. So let me walk you through what my life actually looked like at the time. I'd wake up. I would go to work. I might eat something. I definitely didn't pleasure at all. Any self-pleasure that I did was for the purposes of personal growth. It wasn't for the sake of pleasure at all. It was like, I'm going to do this as a form of meditation to see if I cannot climax. And it was very like regimed and boot campy when it came to touching my physical body. It was like I had to check a box and that was it. So it was very disconnected. In turn, sexually unsatisfied, I pick a fast food dick because at that point my needs are starved. I'm not feeding myself. And so this man is offering a meal. I am going to take it, whether or not he's fully nourishing for me. I take it, realize that, wow, indigestion with this guy. That's okay. It's fine. I'm at least satisfied now. But the problem being is that you have to begin to change something, right? No, I didn't do that. Flash forward a couple months later, I'm still sexually unsatisfied. I pick another guy who's fast food dick because I'm starving, right? I just need to fulfill myself. And it wasn't until I actually took my needs seriously. And I know this sounds obvious, but like I took my needs seriously where it was like, I'm going to massage myself every fucking day. I'm going to put oil in my hair. I'm going to put oil on my skin every single day. I'm going to use my jade roller. I'm going to use my pleasure wands. I'm going to use my obsidian plugs. I'm going to do all of the things that make me feel really good and therefore put my needs first so I'm no longer starved in any of them. Once I did that, now I go on dates and I'm like, oh, there's no void for you to fill because I've already filled it. And so if you are the kind of person who needs a void to fill, we're not going to match. Okay? So now I have now stopped picking guys who think that they're meals. And I'm like, I need a guy who's gravy. Who's like the added thing to my life. The thing that like brings a flavor I didn't know I was missing. the spice. I need a guy who's like the spice of life, you know? Not a guy who's McDonald's. Granted, some days I'll be sexually satisfied and I'm like, you know what? I've got a hankering. And that's okay. The whole key is to be a little bit more conscious about it, because I don't think I was conscious about that. I knew it. Listen, I knew I was doing it, but I don't think I had the consciousness to bring in other behaviors so I could stop doing it. Am I making sense here? Because really, like, my habits and the things that I do on a daily basis now are very different. Like, they're very different than what they were 4 years ago. And what's really interesting too is if I look back at like different periods of my life, when I would be sexually satisfied in myself, it didn't mean that I wasn't promiscuous. It just meant that the quality of dick that I chose was very different. The kind of sex that I was having was very different than the sex that I was used to having when I was starved. And so it's like a whole new experience. And so if you're coming from a place of like, I don't take care of myself, I don't take care of my needs, I make my needs everyone else's responsibility, I can guarantee you the sex that you're having is not the sex that actually fulfills you. And so if you're like, I'm having unfulfilling sex, you have to look at, well, how are you not giving yourself how are you giving yourself unfulfilling sex first? Because it is deeply unfulfilling if you're not willing to touch your own body, if you're not willing to like get into your own skin. And I'm not even talking sexually, emotionally. If you're not willing to look at your own emotions and explore the intimacies of your own mind and heart and soul, then it's going to be really hard for someone else to be able to navigate that. You're going to be consistently unsatisfied. And trust me, I know this. My astrological chart is straight up. Listen, I'm designed by the stars to constantly be teetering between satisfaction and dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction is only ever the result of not choosing to be satisfied in and for myself. And it is selfish. It's 100% selfish. But guess what? I get to choose men from that place. If I'm already full, I'm not starved, I'm choosing him now. Imagine how he gets to feel. Like just like for a hot second. Imagine being chosen by someone, not because they need you to satisfy something they're starved of, but because you are like the exquisite thing in their life that they would just like love to have. Like, oh my God, I would just love to have you in my life. I don't need you. I want you. Very big difference. If I need someone, I get really needy and gross, and it's really because I didn't get needy with myself. So, anyways, those are today's thoughts. How this relates to Moss, to be 100% honest, I don't know, but this is something that I don't really talk about often. I think also, well, moss is a filtration plant, right? Meaning it's got to filter through. It has to look at all of the crap shit that is coming in and not let that through. It is used historically to clear infections from wounds. And so if the infection in my dating life is that I keep choosing fast food men, then I've got to look at it. I've got to make sure that my filtration process of that is up to snuff, that I'm not doing things to let that crud through in and then wonder why my plants are dying. You know, like, why am I so unsatisfied? So, anyways, I'll leave you guys with that for today. Let me know what you're leaving here with. Let me know if there's something that I said that's landed for you, or if you've seen yourself in the things that I've shared. Feel free to DM me, and I'm happy to chat about it. Yes. Okay. Bye.